Julian Mercer sat alone at the restaurant table. The sun was bright and warm on his face, but he felt cold inside. His fancy navy suit was perfect. His watch cost more money than most people earned in a year. But none of it mattered. The food on his plate sat there, getting cold. He hadn't taken a single bite. The wine in his glass tasted like nothing. Everything tasted like nothing these days. His twin brother, Elias, was dead. They'd buried him 3 days ago. Julian could still smell the flowers from the funeral. He could still hear the sad music. He could still see the wooden box going into the ground. Now Elias was gone forever, and Julian was alone. The waiter walked by and smiled. "Is everything okay, sir?" Julian nodded. "Yes, thank you." But nothing was okay. Nothing would ever be okay again. He picked up his fork. Put it down. Picked up his glass. Put it down. He didn't know what to do with his hands. He didn't know what to do with himself. Rich people walked past his table. They laughed and talked about their boats and their vacations. They didn't know that Julian's heart was broken into 1,000,000 pieces. Then he heard a small voice. "Excuse me." Julian looked up. A little girl stood next to his table. She was maybe 6 or 7 years old. Her clothes were dirty and torn. Her hair was messy and hadn't been washed in a long time. Her face had streaks of dirt on it. Her feet were bare and dusty. She looked like she lived on the streets. The restaurant manager rushed over. "I'm so sorry, sir. I'll remove her right away." He reached for the girl's arm, but she moved away. "Please," she whispered. Her voice was so quiet. "Please don't send me away." Julian held up his hand. "Wait." The manager stopped. Everyone at the nearby tables was staring now. Rich ladies whispered to each other. Men in expensive suits frowned and shook their heads. But Julian only looked at the little girl. She was so small, so thin. Her arms looked like tiny sticks. Her eyes were big and dark and full of sadness. She stared at Julian like she was looking at a ghost. "What's your name?" Julian asked softly. "Amara," she said. "What do you want, Amara?" The girl's lip trembled. Her hands shook. She looked down at her dirty feet, then back up at Julian. And then she asked a question that changed everything. "Daddy," she whispered, "can I eat with you?" "Daddy." The word hit Julian like a punch to the stomach. He couldn't breathe. He couldn't think. "What did you say?" His voice came out strange and shaky. "Can I eat with you?" Amara asked again. A tear rolled down her cheek. "I'm so hungry, Daddy. Please." Julian's heart was pounding. This made no sense. He had no children. He had never been married. He had spent his whole life working and building his company. "I'm not your father," he said, but his voice was gentle. Amara shook her head. "You are. I know you are. Mama showed me your picture. She said you were my daddy." The manager stepped forward again. "Sir, I'll call security. This child is clearly trying to scam you. It happens sometimes with these street children." But Julian wasn't listening to the manager. He was staring at Amara's face. And suddenly he saw it. Her eyes. The shape of her nose. The way she tilted her head when she was scared. She looked like Elias. She looked exactly like Elias when he was young. Julian's hands started shaking. His mind was racing. Could Elias have had a daughter? A daughter he never told Julian about? They were twins. They shared everything. They told each other everything. Or so Julian thought. "Sit down," Julian said quietly. "Sir?" the manager asked, shocked. "I said sit down." Julian pointed to the chair across from him. Amara's eyes went wide. "Really?" "Yes. Sit." She climbed into the chair. It was too big for her. Her head barely reached above the table. But she sat very still, like she was afraid Julian would change his mind. Julian waved the manager away. Then he called the waiter over. "Bring her everything," Julian said. "Bread, soup, pasta, chicken, vegetables, juice, water. Everything warm and good." The waiter nodded and hurried away. Amara watched Julian carefully. She didn't smile. She didn't relax. She just watched him with those big, sad eyes. "When did you last eat?" Julian asked. "Yesterday," she said. "A lady gave me half a sandwich. And before that..." Amara thought for a moment. I don't remember. Julian's chest hurt. This little girl was starving, and she thought he was her father. The food came fast. The waiter brought plate after plate. Warm bread with butter, hot soup that steamed, pasta with red sauce, chicken that fell off the bone, green beans and carrots, apple juice and cold water. Amara stared at all of it, her eyes filled with tears. Go ahead, Julian said. Eat. She reached for the bread slowly, like she thought it might disappear. She took a small bite, then another. Then she started eating faster. But even as she ate, she kept looking at Julian, checking to make sure he was still there, making sure he wouldn't take the food away. Julian watched her eat and felt his heart breaking all over again. This child was terrified. She ate like an animal who might lose its meal any second. She grabbed the food with both hands. She chewed fast and swallowed hard. She barely breathed between bites. Slow down, Julian said gently. It's okay. No one will take it from you. Amara slowed down a little, but her eyes stayed nervous. Where is your mother? Julian asked. Amara stopped eating. She put down the bread. Her face became very sad. She's gone, Amara whispered. Gone where? To heaven. That's what the people said. They said she went to heaven and she's not coming back. Julian felt like someone had poured ice water over his head. When? He asked. A long time ago. Maybe 2 months. Maybe more. I don't know. And you've been alone since then? Amara nodded. I sleep in doorways. Sometimes people give me food. Sometimes they yell at me and chase me away. Julian closed his eyes. When he opened them again, Amara was still there, still real, still looking at him with Elias's eyes. Why do you think I'm your father? Julian asked. Amara reached into her dirty pocket. She pulled out a small, folded piece of paper. It was worn and soft from being touched so many times. She unfolded it carefully and slid it across the table. It was a photograph, old and faded, torn at the edges, and it showed Elias. Elias, smiling at the camera. Elias, young and happy. Elias, before the sickness took him. Julian's hand shook as he picked up the photograph. Your mama gave you this? He asked. Yes, Amara said. She said, this is your daddy. His name is Mercer. If anything happens to me, you find him. He'll take care of you. Julian couldn't speak. He stared at the photograph of his brother, his twin, his other half. Elias had a daughter. Elias had a daughter, and he never told Julian. Why? I've been looking for you, Amara said softly. I've been looking for so long. And today I saw you sitting here, and I knew it was you. You look just like the picture. Of course he did. He and Elias were identical twins. They looked exactly the same. Julian looked at this little girl, this hungry, scared, brave little girl who'd been living on the streets, who had been searching for her father, who thought Julian was him. And Julian made a decision. Finish your food, he said, and then you're coming with me. Where? Amara asked, fear flashing in her eyes. Somewhere safe, Julian promised. I'm going to find out the truth, and I'm going to help you. I promise. Amara studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded and went back to eating. Julian sat back in his chair and watched her. His mind was spinning. His heart was pounding. If this child was really Elias's daughter, everything was about to change. Everything. Julian's car was big and quiet. Amara sat in the back seat, staring out the window with wide eyes. She had never been in a car this nice before. Maybe she had never been in a car at all. Where are we going? She asked, her voice small and worried. To the hospital, Julian said, looking at her in the mirror, just to make sure you're healthy. You've been on the streets for a long time. I want a doctor to check on you. Will it hurt? Amara asked. No, Julian promised. They'll be gentle. I'll be right there with you. Amara nodded, but she still looked scared. Her fingers twisted together in her lap. She was probably thinking about running away, but she had nowhere to run to. Julian's mind was racing. He kept looking at the photograph Amara had given him. Elias's face smiled up at him from the old, worn paper. His brother. His twin. His best friend. Why didn't you tell me? Julian thought. Why did you keep this secret? They arrived at the hospital 20 minutes later. Julian knew the director here. He had donated millions of dollars to build a new children's wing. One phone call, and they were rushed to a private room. A kind doctor with gray hair came in. Her name was Dr. Chun. She smiled at Amara. Hello, sweetheart, Dr. Chun said softly. I'm just going to check you over, okay? Make sure everything is working right. Amara looked at Julian. He nodded. It's okay. I'm right here. Dr. Chun was patient and gentle. She checked Amara's heart and lungs. She looked at her ears and throat. She checked her arms and legs for injuries. She's malnourished, Dr. Chun told Julian quietly. Very underweight. She has some infections that need antibiotics, but nothing that can't be fixed with food, medicine, and rest. Can you run a DNA test? Julian asked. Dr. Chun looked surprised. A DNA test? Yes. I need to know if she's related to me, to my family. Dr. Chun looked at Amara, then back at Julian, understanding cross her face. Of course. We'll need a blood sample from both of you. Julian rolled up his sleeve. The nurse took his blood first, so Amara could see it didn't hurt too much. Then it was Amara's turn. She squeezed Julian's hand tight and squeezed her eyes shut. A single tear rolled down her cheek, but she didn't cry out. You're so brave, Julian told her. And he meant it. After the blood was taken, they moved to a comfortable waiting room. Amara sat on a soft couch. A nurse brought her hot chocolate and cookies. She ate slowly this time, like Julian had taught her at the restaurant. Tell me about your mama, Julian said gently. Amara's face became sad. She looked down at her hot chocolate. Her name was Sarah. Amara said she was pretty. She had long dark hair like mine. She used to sing to me at night. What happened to her? She got sick. Really, really sick. She couldn't breathe right. She kept coughing. We didn't have money for the doctor. She got worse and worse. And then one morning, she didn't wake up. Tears streamed down Amara's face now. Julian felt his own eyes burning. The neighbors called people to take her away. They asked me if I had family. I told them about my daddy. But I didn't know where to find you. They said they would look. But then they took me to a big building with lots of kids. It was loud and scary. So I ran away. You've been on the streets ever since? Julian asked. Amara nodded. I've been looking for you. Every day, I looked at the picture Mama gave me. And today, I finally found you. Julian's heart was breaking. This little girl had been through so much pain, so much fear, and she had survived it all just to find her father. But Julian wasn't her father. Elias was, and Elias was gone. Amara, Julian said carefully, did your mama ever talk about your daddy? Did she tell you anything about him? Amara thought hard. She said he was kind. She said he was smart. She said he had to go away before I was born, but it wasn't because he didn't love us. She said sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices. Julian closed his eyes. That sounded like Elias, always making hard choices, always trying to do the right thing, even when it hurt. But why didn't he tell Julian about Sarah? About Amara? They were twins. They shared everything, every secret, every dream, every fear, except this one. Hours passed. Amara fell asleep on the couch, her head resting against Julian's arm. He didn't move. He just sat there, feeling the weight of her small body against him. She trusted him. This tiny, brave girl trusted him completely. She thought he was her father, and she had given him all her hope. What would he do if the DNA test showed she wasn't related to him? What would he do if she was some other man's daughter? And this was all a terrible mistake. But deep down, Julian already knew the truth. He had seen it in her eyes, in the shape of her face, in the way she tilted her head. She was Elias's daughter. He was sure of it. The phone rang. Julian's heart jumped. He carefully moved Amara's head to a pillow and stood up. He walked to the corner of the room and answered. Mr. Mercer? It was Dr. Chun. Yes. The DNA results are ready. Can you come to my office? Tell me now, Julian said. His voice was shaking. "Please, I need to know." There was a pause. Then Dr. Chin spoke quietly. "The child is not your daughter, Mr. Mercer." Julian's heart sank like a stone. "But," Dr. Chin continued, "she is your niece. The DNA shows she is the daughter of someone who shares your exact genetic code. An identical twin." The room spun. Julian grabbed the wall to steady himself. "My brother," he whispered. "She's my brother's daughter." "Yes," Dr. Chin said. "I'm so sorry for your loss, Mr. Mercer. I heard about Elias's passing, but this little girl is definitely his child." Julian couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Elias had a daughter. All this time, Elias had a daughter out there in the world, a beautiful, brave little girl, and he never told Julian about her. "Why, Mr. Mercer?" Dr. Chen's voice brought him back. "Are you all right?" "Yes," Julian said, though he wasn't all right at all. "What do I do now?" "That's up to you," Dr. Chen said gently. "But that little girl needs someone. She needs a family. She needs a home." Julian looked across the room at Amara. She was still sleeping, her face peaceful for the first time since he'd met her. Her small hand was curled under her chin. Her breathing was soft and steady. She looked so much like Elias it hurt. "Can I take her home?" Julian asked. "Legally, it's complicated," Dr. Chen said. "She's been in the system. There will be paperwork. But given your relationship and your resources, I can start the emergency custody process. It will take time. But yes, you can take her home tonight." "Do it," Julian said. "Start the paperwork. I'll pay whatever it costs. I'll hire the best lawyers. I don't care. She's not going back on the streets. She's not going into the system." "Are you sure?" Dr. Chen asked. "This is a big decision." Julian looked at Amara again, his niece, Elias's daughter, the only piece of his brother left in this world. "I'm sure," he said. "She's family." He hung up the phone and walked back to the couch. He sat down carefully, and Amara stirred. Her eyes opened slowly. "Did you leave?" she asked, fear in her voice. "No," Julian said softly. "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" Julian looked into her eyes, Elias's eyes, and he made a promise he intended to keep for the rest of his life. "I promise. You're not alone anymore. Amara, you have me now, and I'm going to take care of you." "Really?" Her voice was so small, so full of hope it made Julian's chest ache. "Really," he said. "You're coming home with me. Tonight, and tomorrow, and every day after that." Amara's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were happy tears. "Are you really my daddy?" she whispered. Julian hesitated. He should tell her the truth. He should explain that he was her uncle, not her father, that her real father was gone. But not yet. Not tonight. Tonight, she just needed to feel safe. "I'm your family," Julian said, "and that's what matters. I'm going to protect you and take care of you. Always." Amara threw her arms around Julian's neck and hugged him tight. She buried her face in his shoulder and cried. All the fear and loneliness and pain came pouring out. Julian held her close and let her cry. His own tears fell silently into her messy hair. "Thank you," Amara whispered. "Thank you for finding me." But Julian knew the truth. She had found him. This brave little girl had searched for months. She had survived on the streets. She had never given up hope. And now she was finally home. The car ride to Julian's house was quiet. Amara sat in the back seat, holding a small bag the hospital had given her. Inside were clean clothes, medicine, and a teddy bear one of the nurses had found for her. She clutched the teddy bear tight against her chest and stared out the window. The city lights flickered past. People walked on sidewalks, going home to their families. Amara had never had a real home before. Just small apartments that smelled bad and had broken windows. And then the streets. "Are you okay?" Julian asked, watching her in the mirror. Amara nodded, but she didn't speak. She looked scared again. Julian understood. She was afraid this was all a dream, that she would wake up back on the cold streets, hungry and alone. She was afraid Julian would change his mind and leave her somewhere. She had been abandoned before. First by her father, who went away before she was born. Then by her mother, who died. Then by the system that was supposed to help her. Why should she trust Julian? They pulled up to a tall building made of glass and steel. A doorman in a fancy uniform opened the car door. "Good evening, Mr. Mercer," the doorman said. Then he saw Amara and smiled. "And who is this?" "This is Amara," Julian said. "She's going to be living with me now." The doorman's eyes widened in surprise, but he was too polite to ask questions. "Welcome, Miss Amara. I hope you'll be very happy here." Amara didn't say anything. She just held Julian's hand tighter. They took an elevator up, up, up. Amara watched the numbers climb higher and higher. 15 floors, 20 floors, 30 floors. Her stomach felt funny from moving so fast. The elevator doors opened right into Julian's apartment. Not a hallway, right into his home. Amara had never seen anything like it. The apartment was huge, bigger than any place Amara had ever been. The floors were shiny wood. The windows went from the floor to the ceiling and showed the whole city spread out below like a blanket of stars. Soft couches sat in the living room. Expensive art hung on the walls. Everything was perfect. Everything was clean. Everything looked like it cost more money than Amara could imagine. And it was completely empty of life. No toys. No pictures of family. No mess. It looked like a museum, not a home. Amara stood very still in the doorway. She was afraid to walk on the clean floors with her new shoes. She was afraid to touch anything. "Come in," Julian said gently. "It's okay." Amara took one small step inside, then another. She looked around with huge eyes. "Is this really where you live?" she whispered. "Yes, and now it's where you live too." Amara couldn't believe it. She had spent the last 2 months sleeping in doorways and under bridges, and now she was going to live in this palace in the sky? "Let me show you your room," Julian said. He led her down a hallway. There were several doors. He opened one at the end. Inside was a bedroom. It had a big bed with a soft pink blanket. There was a bookshelf and a desk. A window looked out at the city lights. Everything was clean and new and perfect, but it felt cold, like no one had ever lived there. "This is yours," Julian said. "We'll go shopping tomorrow and get you whatever you want. Toys, books, clothes, anything." Amara walked slowly into the room. She touched the bed. It was so soft, softer than anything she had ever felt. "Can I really sleep here?" she asked. "Of course. This is your room now." Amara sat on the edge of the bed. She looked so small in the big room, so lost. Julian realized she probably didn't believe this was real. She probably thought he would make her leave in the morning. He sat down next to her. "Amara, I need to tell you something important." She looked up at him with worried eyes. "Here it comes," her face said. "Here's where he tells me I have to leave." "I'm not your daddy," Julian said softly. Amara's face crumbled. Tears filled her eyes. "But the picture—" "Let me finish," Julian said, putting his hand on her shoulder. "I'm not your daddy, but your daddy was my brother, my twin brother. His name was Elias, and he looked exactly like me. That's why you thought I was him." Amara's tears spilled over. "Where is he? Where's my real daddy?" Julian's heart broke. He had to tell her. She deserved the truth. "He died, Amara, 3 days ago. He was very sick, and he died. I'm so sorry." Amara's whole body started to shake. She cried and cried. Big, heaving sob that shook her tiny frame. "Everyone leaves me," she cried. "Everyone goes away. Mama left. Daddy left. Everyone leaves." Julian pulled her into his arms and held her tight. I know it hurts. And I know you're scared. But I'm not leaving. Do you hear me? I'm not leaving you. You promise?" Amara sobbed into his chest. "I promise. You're my niece, Amara. You're my family. You're the only piece of my brother I have left. And I'm going to take care of you for the rest of my life. But what if you die too?" Julian held her tighter. "Everyone dies someday. But I'm healthy and I'm going to be here for a long, long time. Long enough to see you grow up. Long enough to see you go to school and make friends and learn to do amazing things. I'm not going anywhere." Amara cried for a long time. Julian just held her and let her cry. All the pain and fear and loneliness came pouring out. He knew she needed this. She needed to grieve for her mother, for her father, for the childhood she had lost. Finally, her sobs quieted. She hiccuped and sniffled against Julian's shirt. "I'm tired," she whispered. "Let's get you ready for bed," Julian said. He helped her change into soft pajamas the hospital had given her. He tucked her into the big bed with the teddy bear. He pulled the blanket up to her chin. "Will you stay?" Amara asked. Her eyes were red from crying. She looked exhausted. "Of course." Julian sat on the edge of the bed. He thought Amara would fall asleep right away. But she just lay there, staring at the ceiling. "What's wrong?" he asked. "It's too quiet," she said. "When I slept outside, there were always sounds. Cars and people and sirens. This is too quiet. It's scary." Julian understood. After months on the streets, silence probably felt wrong, dangerous, even. "Would you like me to tell you about your father?" Julian asked. "About Elias?" Amara's eyes lit up. "Yes, please." Julian smiled and began to talk. He told her about growing up with Elias, about how they did everything together, how they played tricks on their teachers because no one could tell them apart, how Elias loved to read books and dream about adventures, how he was kind to everyone he met. Amara listened with wide eyes. "He sounds nice." "He was the best person I ever knew," Julian said. His voice broke a little. "And I know he would have loved you so much if he had known about you." "Why didn't he know about me?" Julian shook his head. "I don't know. Maybe your mama didn't tell him. Maybe he didn't know she was going to have a baby. Maybe they lost touch and he couldn't find her. I'll never know for sure. But I know this. If he had known about you, nothing in the world could have kept him away." Amara thought about this. "Do I look like him?" "You look exactly like him. Same eyes, same smile. When I look at you, I see my brother. And that makes me so happy." A small smile appeared on Amara's face. It was the first real smile Julian had seen from her. "I'm glad I found you," she said sleepily. Her eyes were starting to close. "I'm glad you found me too," Julian said. But just as Amara's eyes were closing, they snapped open again. She sat up suddenly, breathing fast. "What if the bad people come?" she asked. "What if they try to take me away?" "What bad people?" "The people from the building with all the kids. What if they come to take me back?" Julian took her hand. "They won't. I have lawyers, people who know all the rules, and they're making sure you can stay with me forever. No one is going to take you away. You're safe here. I promise." "But what if—" "Amara," Julian looked into her eyes. "I'm a very rich man, and I'm going to use every bit of that money to make sure you're protected. No one will take you from me. No one. Do you understand?" Amara nodded slowly. She lay back down, but she still looked worried. Then Julian had an idea. "Would you like to sleep in my room tonight? Just for tonight, until you feel safer?" Relief flooded Amara's face. "Really? Really? Come on." He picked her up. She weighed almost nothing and carried her to his room. He laid her in his big bed and covered her with blankets. He turned on a small lamp, so the room wasn't completely dark. Then he sat in a chair next to the bed. "Aren't you going to sleep?" Amara asked. "I will. I just want to make sure you fall asleep first." Amara snuggled deeper into the blankets. "This bed is so soft. It's like sleeping on a cloud." Julian smiled. "Get some rest, little one." But Amara wasn't done talking yet. "Julian?" "Yes." "Can I call you Uncle Julian?" Julian felt warmth spread through his chest. "I would love that." "Uncle Julian?" "Yes, Amara?" "Thank you for not walking away. Thank you for letting me eat with you. Thank you for bringing me home." Julian's eyes burned with tears. "You don't have to thank me. You're family. Family takes care of each other. Even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." Amara smiled. Her eyes finally closed. Within minutes, her breathing became slow and steady. She was asleep. Julian sat in the chair and watched her sleep. This tiny girl who had survived so much, who had been so brave, who had searched the whole city just to find her father. And now she was here, safe, federal warm, loved. Julian thought about his brother, about Elias, who had died without ever knowing his daughter, without ever holding her or hearing her laugh or seeing her smile. "I'll take care of her," Julian whispered into the darkness. "I promise, Elias. I'll give her the life you would have wanted for her. I'll love her enough for both of us." The city hummed outside the windows. Life went on below. People rushed to meetings and parties. They worried about money and jobs and all the small things that seemed so important. But up here, in this quiet room, the world had changed. A lonely man had found a purpose. A lost girl had found a home. And two broken hearts had begun to heal. Julian finally stood up and climbed into the other side of the bed. Amara stirred and moved closer to him in her sleep. Her small hand reached out and grabbed his shirt, holding on tight even in her dreams. Julian put his arm around her gently and closed his eyes. For the first time since Elias died, Julian didn't feel alone. The empty apartment didn't feel so empty anymore. The silence didn't feel so heavy. He had someone to protect now, someone to care for, someone to love. He had Amara, and she had him. Tomorrow, there would be paperwork and lawyers and 1,000 things to figure out. There would be doctor's appointments and school enrollment and learning how to be a parent. But tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, a little girl slept peacefully for the first time in months, and a broken man became whole again. Sometimes the smallest question can change everything. Sometimes a single choice to stay, to listen, to care can save 2 lives at once. Julian thought he was rescuing Amara, but really, they rescued each other. If this story touched your heart, please like this video to help others find it. Subscribe to our channel for more emotional and inspiring stories that will make you believe in the power of kindness. Share this story with someone who needs to be reminded that it's never too late to become someone's hero. Comment below. Would you have stayed and shouldered the truth or walked away to preserve the old order? What would you do if a child asked you for help? Share your thoughts. We read every comment. Remember, every person you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Be kind. Be present. Be the person who stays when everyone else walks away. Thank you for watching. See you in the next story.